Sidney Pritchard, Pico's founder, opened the Beer Heights in 1975. Since then, this 7¼ inch gauge line has gained a permanent stud of 6 locos. Claudine arrived under wraps, driven by its designer and builder, the Beer Heights Chief Mechanical Engineer, John McDougall. The waiting crowd were further delighted by the arrival of Pete Waterman.
He's a music impresario, possibly best known for that and his contribution as a judge on Pop Idol. So without further ado, could I please introduce to you Pete Waterman.
Now then, model trains. I look round here and I see all these kids. 55 years ago, my dad took me to play with a model train. And I bought the Flying Scotsman and British Railways. I did something wrong. I should have bought a big house and put the money in the bank. Because if you ever want to spend money, God, this is the hobby. I'd own Peru now if I did drugs. No, they're wonderful things. It's fantastic. And this is not the first time I've been here. And I remember the last time I came here was just about 30 years ago, and I launched my first model railway company then. It was called Models and Leisure. We used to get a lot of funny phone calls. Could never quite work out why we got all these funny phone calls. Of course, Pico has always published probably the best model railway magazine in the world. And it was then, and it still is today, the Bible of all of us that make things. So I'm going to now officially take the cloth off this. I'm not sure I've ever officially took the cloth off anything in my life, so it's a first. Right, let's go and do this.
The unveiling that followed was a genuine celebrity occasion. Not least of the stars present was Claudine herself, named after Sidney Pritchard's wife and original Pico co-director.
Well, Pete Waterman was thrilled to bits with this engine. Well, we had a job to prize him off it at the end of the day, to be honest.
Thank you very much, Pete. Can you just scribble something on there? I've got to have a pen.
Autograph hunters had a field day. But so too did Pete, who was keen to get behind Claudine's controls.
He drove it a little bit like a Formula 1 car here and there, but that wasn't his fault. He didn't know the track and the gradients, that's fine. But no, he said it was very smooth, probably the smoothest 7¼ engine certainly he's ever been on. Given that he's used to driving his own full-size locomotives on the West Somerset, for example, close by, he has one at the moment. We thought he might be a little bit, perhaps not nervous, but sceptical about doing this size, but he was absolutely fine and thrilled to bits.
This new locomotive is very much a tribute to the skills of John McDougall. It is based on Robert Fairley's original 1870s design for the Festiniog Railway. In common with the Festiniog, the Beer Heights requires motive power that can haul over gradients, whilst negotiating sharp bends with ease. Claudine's so-called single Fairley design, with a pivoting power bogie allied to a pivoting truck at the back, provided the perfect solution. The smooth running characteristics of this design is enjoyed on the Beer Heights.
In fact, many years ago, in Victorian times, one of the Festiniog railway drivers is alleged to have said that if locomotive driving was possible in heaven, it would have to be on a single Fairley. You'll notice that the coals at the front of the cab on this particular engine, it's quite unusual for locomotives in this country. It's more common for the colonial railways like the Darjeeling and Himalaya Railway in India, for example, where you had to climb miles and miles up very steep mountains. They crammed coal into every conceivable orifice. On this railway, it's particularly useful to have it there because it means when you're in a confined cab, a small space, you can shovel it out right next to you, put it straight in the firebox as opposed to having to turn round or get it from under your seat as we do on the other engines.
Getting the Beer Heights to where it is today has been a huge collective effort, but building the latest addition to its stud has required massive personal commitment.
There's a fairly massive job producing something like this. Being a one-off, there's an awful lot of design goes into it before you ever start to cut metal or see anything for your efforts. But yeah, roughly 2-year project. The colour chosen for this engine is known as Stroudley's Improved Engine Green, which, looking at it, you might find a bit strange, but Mr. Stroudley was in fact one of the designers on the London and Brighton and South Coast Railway, which is a railway in pre-1923 used to run trains not too far from here, and he evidently was colourblind. You wouldn't guess that, would you, calling this Improved Engine Green? But we thought, being such an attractive Victorian livery, it was very suited to the name Claudine. It's a very sort of feminine colour scheme.
My dad took me to, a very similar little steam train when I was a kid, and it never left me. I've spent the rest of my life, loving steam engines and loving railways. There's so much around here to see, it's fantastic. But this is fun. This is a different fun. This is playing trains.
The Beer Heights is more than a day out. It's an inspiration to anyone who needs a kickstart in the hobby. We can't all be as celebrated as Pete, but there is one area in which we can follow his example.
It's one of them things all my life I've wanted to build a model railway. And I've been making models, through a company since 1973. And I've never really had time to build a railway, so I'm now going to do it. So I've spent the last 18 months starting to build my own layout. It's blown me away, this has. This is just, it's so clever. It's, you just don't expect it when you walk around the corner.